Deloraine is a very small town. It has a population of 2,500 people. Our surrounding community has a total population almost at 5,000 people. And yet Deloraine is able to support 10 different religions, including things as diverse as your traditional religions. We have Jehovah's Witnesses, we have Seventh-day Adventists, we have Mormons, we have a Buddhist temple. We also have Mennonites, and the Mennonites chose Deloraine as the community in Australia to move to from America because they had identified Deloraine as a community that would support them and embrace them and not persecute them. Deloraine has over 20 sporting organisations, it has 5 service clubs, and it has a really strong and vibrant arts culture. But it hasn't always been that way. Historically, Deloraine is a farming and forestry community, and we have been that way for well over 100 years. But in the 1970s, the community began to change when hippies began to move in, creating an alternative lifestyle up in the bush. And it created an immense level of division within the community, to the point where the hippies inherited one pub and the farmers and the forestry people went to the other 3 pubs. There was a massive divide in the community, and I guess my best friend in high school and I represented the 2 polar extremities of our community at Deloraine High, as I came from a 5th generation traditional farming family and she grew up in a bus in Golden Valley. But what actually started to bring our community together was the local Rotary Club in 1981 starting a craft fair in Deloraine. Now, the very conservative economic leaders of Deloraine, members and pillars of the community, members of the Rotary Club, suddenly recognised that if their craft fair was going to be successful, they needed some artistic people with some craft to run some stalls. And so they turned to the artistic people who had moved into the hills and become the local hippies. And the artistic people living in the hills suddenly went, well, these conservative old fogies aren't so bad after all if they can run a craft fair where we can come for 3 days of the year and make enough money to survive for the rest of the year. And so what emerged was one of the key things that the arts can do for the community, which is to find common ground and bring people together and allow 2 very, very different components of the community to develop an appreciation for each other. But more importantly than that, the Deloraine Craft Fair grew and grew and grew. It attracts over 30,000 people to the town over 4 days in November these days, and is a leading craft fair in Australia. It does an enormous amount for the community because the 5 service clubs that our tiny little town has are able to thrive because they all contribute to that craft fair and they're all able to raise funds during that weekend. The 20 sporting organisations are able to raise money to buy new equipment and improve their sporting facilities. The Deloraine Agricultural and Pastoral Society survives not because anyone goes to the Deloraine show, but because the show society are able to rent their facilities to the craft fair and also to run their own food stall during the craft fair weekend. So it doesn't matter if only one person goes to the show each year. The Agricultural Society can continue to survive. It's made an enormous difference to our community and it has created a really positive and vibrant arts culture, and it makes such a difference to the ability of the community to welcome change, to allow people to start new and novel businesses within the community and to embrace different ideas. Now, I've been a champion of arts in the community for a number of years for all the opportunities that it creates. And we decided as a business that perhaps it was time we started to put our money where our mouth was. And so a couple of years ago, we came up with a great idea that we wanted to run an arts project. My sister is a drama teacher here in Launceston at Launceston College, and so I have a lifetime of getting dragged into school productions. And there is nothing quite like a school production to bring the community together. And in my opinion, one of the greatest ways that we can support arts in the community is to encourage arts in schools. So when we were looking as a business to get involved in an arts project, we decided to go for gold and run the craziest arts project anyone had come up with schools. We bought fiberglass cows and we gave them to schools to paint. Now, when I approached the dairy industry to assist me with this project, I was met with a significant level of scepticism and negativity. Nobody wanted to assist with the project, and there is nothing like the negative vibes of others to drive me forward. So I was not about to be deterred by other people telling me it was a bad idea to give fiberglass cows to schools. We went ahead with the project. We had 21 schools involved. We displayed the cows at AgFest, the Agricultural Field Days here in Tasmania, and the project had ramifications that I hadn't really begun to comprehend. I knew that it was a valuable project for schools to do because there's nothing quite like sticking a life-size cow in a classroom to get kids thinking outside the square. And the sorts of projects that you can do with a life-size cow in the middle of your classroom, in addition to painting it, are as big as your imagination. But the impact that I didn't realise we were going to have was on the industry itself. And our cows were on display for the 3 days of AgFest. And the number of people from the dairy industry who came up to us and said, thank you so much for showing our industry in such a positive light and creating such a positive vibe. We have never seen anything that made us feel so good about being part of the dairy industry. And that was a really important and really moving thing for me. It inspired us the following year to think that, well, moving fiberglass cows around and importing them from overseas was quite a big ordeal. Perhaps we would go for something simpler and get some support from the local boot manufacturer, Launceston. So we got them to donate 100 pairs of gumboots, and we gave them to 54 primary schools across northern Tasmania, again to paint. It's amazing what you can do with a pair of gumboots. I was quite astounded. And let me assure you that the logistics of organising 100 pairs of gumboots is no easier than 21 fiberglass cows. The highlight of the gumboot project, though, came for me earlier this year when I was leaving Canberra in July, and I jumped on the plane and I was reading The Australian. The article I was reading was all about what Julia had taken into the Prime Minister's office with her. And one of the items listed was a pair of gumboots painted by Penguin Primary School. And it was such an immense moment of pride for me to know that our very humble little community project that we'd done down here in Tassie had not only made it all the way to Canberra, but it had made it all the way to the top office in the land. And it made me really proud. One of the most fundamental components of economic prosperity is a capacity to provide goods and services that are desired by and relevant to consumers. So it doesn't matter whether we're a business or whether we're a community. The rapid pace of change in the 21st century means that for all of us to thrive, we need a capacity to embrace change. And we need a capacity to visualise new opportunities that come our way. And for this reason, I think it's really important that we have strong arts cultures, because for rural and regional communities, whether they're in Australia or anywhere else in the world, to thrive, we need a capacity to evolve and change. Thanks.